Hello and welcome. I'm Patrick Curtis, your host and chief monkey, and this is the Wall Street Oasis podcast. Join me as I talk to some of the community's most successful and inspirational members to gain valuable insight into different career paths and life in general. Let's get to it. In this special episode, I give honest advice to a small group of MBAs and MSF students from John Hopkins University that face an uphill battle when trying to apply to front office finance roles. We talk strategy when networking, the future of WSO, and I try not to sugarcoat anything. Enjoy.
Patrick, welcome. We're really excited to have you, talk to the Hopkins students. One of us, Matt, is a transfer to Columbia because he thinks he's better than us. But there you go. Very, very subtle, very subtle. But we're very excited to speak with you. We've got a bunch of cool questions. So with that, I'm going to give the floor to you. And, we'll just get started with you picking up a name, and then we have questions ready for you.
Sure. I'll just go kind of clockwise from what I'm saying. Shay, you want to ask me a question, and we'll kind of go from there. And by the way, any question, if you want to change your question, it can be as detailed or as I'll tell you the truth of everything, because I've been out of the industry for a long time, but I have a decent view into what's going on based on just the community. But you got to understand, it's a little dated. I'm old now. I got the gray beard. I've been out of it for a good almost 18 years since I was in bank, and 50.
So we'll ask you all technical questions then.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what I was about to say. So I'm going to get real technical with it. No, my first one's kind of more just pertains to your starting of Wall Street Oasis, and I think all of us follow it in somewhat, and some of us have helped us get into the industry and be excited about it, which is great. So I appreciate you joining us today. It's awesome. I'm curious from your perspective, I think IB and PE require kind of that entrepreneurial desire and trait. And so I'm curious to hear, with you starting Wall Street Oasis, what was maybe your biggest setback, biggest learning lesson in starting the organization yourself, or something that you wish you could go back and tell yourself, hey, when you're starting this, I wish I could have done this differently, for example?
Good question. I mean, been around for 14 years. When I started it, everyone thinks starting a business, it's this, magical idea. It really isn't. And our story isn't really any different than a lot of other successful startups. Basically every year it's been a tiny bit of growth, and there's been no kind of hockey stick, and we're still relatively small. We have a big brand, but relatively small business that runs along kind of the back of it and supports the community. So people assume it's this big business, but it's really not. It's a group of 10 to 20 of us. So in terms of what I could have done better, probably just being less. I've been super cautious. I haven't raised any money. I'm not delusional in terms of how big it can be. I think one mistake we would have made, I wish we had transitioned earlier into training so that we could invest it heavier into the community and the platform. Because I think we've been a little bit hamstrung in terms of only doing interview and career prep stuff and mentor stuff. I think there is a great market for financial modeling training, which we've recently gotten into. And we're just now starting to go into corporate training and live training and all that stuff, which I think is exciting, because we have a huge team of 800 plus mentors that we're now able to tap and be like, hey, guess what? You're not just going to mentor. Who wants to teach? And it's been amazing, the response there. So I think just being a little bit more strategic about where we're going to try and grow the actual business side, instead of being so consumed by the community, because the community is all consuming. So I think we've, from a strategic standpoint, it's almost existential, right? It's if you just are a community forever, and suddenly, Facebook starts grabbing more of the traffic and Instagram starts grabbing the traffic, there's less and less attention. It's harder and harder as an independent social media company to actually get that attention. So I think being smart about how we're growing the business side of things to make sure we can stay alive is important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the reason I just asked, just to give you a tidbit, is we're kind of starting to grow this IB banking association with Hopkins, and so how to be strategic. Obviously, not the same as Wall Street Oasis, but similarities. So it's cool to hear your perspective on that side.
Yeah, in terms of the community and the association, is it a couple hundred people eventually? What's the thought process on that?
I would as large as it can get, the better. I can't give you a high enough number,
Yeah,
but
just
the more people from Hopkins, the better.
I
Right?
think the important thing is just finding that cycle of like where people who have knowledge or whatnot or connections can kind of give to the people who don't have that, and they find don't always don't always try to like make it a formal thing.
Okay.
I think this is good. I think just making it easy and not trying to especially at the beginning, don't over like plan. Just try to execute on it and see who you can get in the door.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I guess we're going to Matt next.
Hi, Patrick. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good. I'm good. I gotta say, I love your little headset. Every time I watch like any of the podcasts or something, you always look like a sports announcer, and it just adds a different level of.
I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, they're like these gaming headphones. I don't even know. I just like get something that's comfortable.
I remember, Patrick, when you and I did my session, like you were wearing a Patriots cap, and I was like not happy with that. I was like, I only found that out later when I actually saw the podcast, and I was like, I'm like, I wish I knew that when I was actually talking to you on the phone.
Hey, you can talk trash. You can talk trash. It's fine.
So yeah, my question for you is: are there any efforts for Wall Street Oasis to host sessions similar to the ones that we're having? And essentially setting up a classroom environment on a whole bunch of different campuses where students can potentially, get their school to pay for credits and pay, I guess, you for like a certain course on the weekends or something like that. And they could even take it for credits, anything like that going on behind the scenes.
The credits thing is TBD. I don't know. I'm not that familiar with it, but the actual courses for universities, absolutely. I think we already have partnerships, I think around 20 universities for our online courses. And that's growing now significantly since we just launched the financial modeling training stuff. And so along with the live instruction, I think corporate's a little easier to sell to than universities have pretty tight budgets and they're harder, but like it's definitely something we're open to, and we've already started opening that up. So yes is the answer. We're gonna definitely do that. And if you want to put me in touch with anybody that is interested in that type of stuff, I think the instructors that we've just started putting instructors through like dry runs and all this stuff, and the people we're getting are unbelievable. So I'm super confident that we're going to have some kick-ass instructors within like a couple weeks ready to go. So
that's awesome. So at the end of the course and all that stuff, would they just get a certificate, or like, if you do when you do partner up with schools, is it just come up on their transcript, or is it kind of a separate certificate that they get like on a weekend course?
Yeah, it could be like on a boot camp, IB boot camp or private equity, like a master class or something. They could get a certificate saying, they completed this. It's different because the online we give a certificate, but for the boot camps, I think it's different because you have to make sure they show up and like they're actually doing the test and they know what they're doing, rather than just like giving them a participation trophy or whatever. But like, what does that mean? I don't know. We'll see. I think people like that because they can add it to the resume. It makes them a little bit, especially if they're coming from like a medical background, like a Hopkins, and they're trying to make that pivot. I think that can be helpful in terms of signaling. But all that stuff will be there. In terms of rollout and timing, probably like this summer is when we'll be fully ramped. And then by next fall, when people are coming back onto campus, hopefully we have some trainings lined up.
Well, if you need an extra hand, I saw on Overheard Recruiter that you guys might need a certain guy from Rajat's class on the weekends. And, I might be free. I don't know.
Perfect. Let me know. Yeah, shoot me an email.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. All right. Khalil, is it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Patrick, thanks for taking the time on Monday to chat with us. So kind of building off of Shay's question earlier, you've created this platform that, is great for all of us, but for you, what's been the most fulfilling thing about starting and, carrying Wall Street Oasis, and where do you see the community going in the future? Like what's next?
Yeah, I think conversations like these and the emails I get just from users who are like, I love Wall Street Oasis. It helped me. I wouldn't be where I was without the community. I think that's the best part for sure. It keeps us going, keeps the whole team going. I like always share those emails with the whole team. I'm like, look, this is why we do it. I think it's important to know that like in terms of mission, like we're trying to have fun. We're trying to make it so it's not so boring, so drawn out. And we try to bring that to our training as well, because I feel like there's most of the trainers out there, they take investment banking very seriously. They take financial modeling very seriously. it's just a sales job, and you need to know the technical skills, and like you need to, so like let's make it fun. And so for us, it's like, can we make this stuff fun? Can we make it less painful? Can we make it so people are more engaged and having and basically learning more as a result? And I think we can. So yeah, basically the just hearing from community members saying it really helped them has been awesome. Just when I've been reaching out to people, even just asking about training, like almost everyone writes back, or a lot of people write back, I love the community. Like I'm on there all the time, or I'm browsing all the time. And that's cool to see that it's touched so many people. So I think that's
okay.
what I'd say. Anything else on that? I don't know if I answered the question well.
No, I mean, I just kind of wanted to hear, your perspective.
Oh, and then in the future, you asked. In the future, yeah, I think so. We are moving more towards the training side, but I think there's definitely opportunities for like a lot more of this more informal type of stuff. Whether it's like open, even if it's just community members, like open chats and more like even just free webinars around different topics from our mentors. Like if we could actually build up a bigger business, we could start funding like just free webinars on a whole bunch of host of like, oh, join an hour with XYZ real estate private equity professional to walk through a development model or whatever, or do an acquisition model, or this case study that he cracked, and just doing that type of stuff, I think will build even more goodwill and get people excited to be like, this is the best. That's the goal. So, but we are actually bringing money to hire those people to pay them and stuff like that, because they don't do it for free.
Well, I'm ready to do something for free if it's charity work and paying it forward. I really believe in that. So, loop me in. But a quick note, Patrick, I wanted to say this. Every Saturday, 9 a.m. or 9:30 a.m. Eastern time, the traffic on your website goes through the roof. Because all of us, and there are like more of us on the group like who couldn't make it today, like just like go on Wall Street Oasis and are digging through like questions or experiences of different people before we have a speaker come through, or if we have a speaker come through in one of the following sessions, we're just like looking on like, all right, let's check out like Guggenheim. We have an MD coming from there. Let's see everything about it before that. So yeah, that's how we leverage WSO.
Good. That's awesome to hear. That's awesome. Doris, you want to give me a question? I think you're muted. Yeah,
Thank you, Patrick.
No worries.
I'm really happy because I listened to your podcast several times, and I also heard about your story that you shared through another podcast. And I'm curious that as you have connected with so many people and also talk with them through your podcast, what are the key points that you hope your audience to get? And also another thing is, how did you leverage your network through your career path?
Sure, that's a great question. Having done now 152 after today, 152 discussions and episodes, it's crazy how like sometimes people are just lucky. So that happens occasionally in the podcast. I'm like, how did you do this? And then they're like, oh, this my buddy, like whatever, his friend, or they have connections or something. But the vast majority, I'd say that's probably like 5 out of the 152. And the other like 147, it's really just about like people grinding. And I always try to like pull that out in terms of like, how many emails did you send? What was the hit rate? Like, how painful was that? What, you were running out of money. What happened? Like, how did you kind of float yourself? And I think that's just the pattern you see everywhere. It's so obvious, and it's kind of gets to the point where it's a little bit boring for me, because I'm like, yep, here it comes. Okay, he networked. He had that. Oh wow, that one conversation he had from 3 years before is what gave him the thing. And I'm like, yeah, here it comes. I can do it with like while I'm sleeping, practically, because I know what's coming. I'm just looking from their background, but it's really just about relationships and building those genuine relationships, like acting interested and curiosity that is hard to fake. So, if you can have a genuine curiosity and you're doing the networking right and asking the right questions, it goes a long way towards people having a good impression of you. So like if you're asking good questions and you're like, instead of just being like, okay, Google questions for IB networking session, or if you're on WSO and you're just asking the same 10 questions that everyone else is asking, I think it's better if you're like, when you're having a conversation with somebody, you're taking what they're saying and kind of twisting on it and asking questions relevant to what they just said. Because it makes it look like, oh, they're like they're already taking what I'm saying and trying to dig in further. I think it just shows that you're like listening, you're You're paying attention and what they're saying isn't just going in one ear and out the other, which is like their worst fear. And that a lot of people who mentor, I've had people who I recruit for our mentor team. They're like, oh yeah, you don't know how many people come out, reach out, we'll do a conversation. They never follow up. Still, people still do that. It's like, why are you wasting time? Why are you doing that? Like, you're doing all the effort to do all the outreach and then you're not following up. Like, what's the point? And so like, if you're not going to follow up, you're not going to keep a guy I mentored. I'll give you an example. This guy, John, Monkey to Millions. He's one of my mentees. He got this real estate job.
I love all of the names on Wall Street Oasis. I even made mine Bananas Foster.
So John, he was a guy I mentored through. He went to UC Irvine, non-target California. He was starting a little bit later, but sharp guy. Worked hard. He networked hard. He ended up getting a job in like a real estate shop. Good job. And now the bank that rejected him came back to him and was like, "Oh, we have an offering for you." And he's like, "Should I take it? It's banking." And I'm like, well, I don't know now, because you've been at the real estate shop for a year. They're going to pay you the same, like that jumping. And it's like a boutique shop and everyone's running for the hills. Why is everyone running for the hills? So I'm like, I don't know. Why have you been in touch with like what about your network that you built up for a year and a half? Like, have you updated any of them on like what you're doing? And he's like, no. I'm like, well, so don't take that job at that tiny boutique. Do you know how many analysts are quitting right now? First year analysts? Like he's already been working for almost a year. I'm like, there's probably a lateral position out there for you if you're in touch with your people. And so he's like, oh yeah, okay. But like that network isn't just like done once you get the job, right? You want to keep like at least every 6 months, try to like ping them, be like, hey, this is what I'm up to. Hope all is well. I saw you did this. Congratulations, blah, blah, blah. Because, when you are ready to jump, it'll be great. It'll be great that you're not like for those 3 or 4 or 5 emails you sent them, and they may not all write back, but you weren't asking for anything. You were just keeping them updated, being friendly. And then when you actually need something, it's really, really helpful to have those relationships in place. So yeah, I don't know where I went with that, but
yeah, that's great. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Patrick, I have something to add here. Every time somebody reaches out to me, like I genuinely try and go out of my way to help them. One of the things I always tell people, which is a clear-cut litmus test for me, I give them the link to my podcast and I'm like, all right, go listen to this podcast. Tell me what from this podcast is applicable to you, and then I can guide you accordingly, right? And all of these guys in this group, and like a lot of more from my mentor group, everybody's heard at least my podcast. I don't know about the other ones. And then once
yours was great. Yours was great because it was so gut-wrenching.
I think it was fun. Like I think there were others which were like way more, tough. I remember there was one guy from Pakistan or something who actually lived in his dad's car or something for a few months, and then got a job at Barclays or one of the big banks. But anyway, like that's what I do with these guys, and I'm like, all right, listen to this, come back to me, and yeah, you're right. Like I'm surprised that like a lot of students, don't even put that effort to follow up. And they just want a connection or like just connect with the recruiter. I'm like, yeah, not going to do it. Like if you, don't show me some skin in the game.
Yeah. Yeah. It's important. I think, you'll be already putting yourself in a pretty good spot if you're persistent and engaged. It's hard. It's a pain in the ass to do. I mean, who wants to have like, keep a spreadsheet of like 300 names and just be like following up? No one likes to do it, but if you,
right here.
Yeah, go. You like to do it?
I mean, like it's kind of interesting because like I have my spreadsheet out, and it's also very depressing to see that all the axes that you click for like all day, like I sent a LinkedIn, and then legitimately it's blank on the next column of who accepted you. And then the ones who accepted you, then the next slide is how many blanks you have that they don't even respond back to you. So like the frustration is like, it's heavy there.
How many times are you following up with no response? If they've connected,
I usually go about 3 or 4 times.
Yeah,
and then normally on the 4th time sending it, I become very hesitant, just because like I think at that point when they're not responding back to you, I kind of get scared, saying that maybe if I send another note,
if you spread it out, as long as it's not like in like a 4-week period for notes.
Yeah, it's usually never like that.
Yeah, but if you wait like 5 months and then you throw them another one in there, I don't think that's so bad.
Yeah, but I mean like. It's sort of like, how you were talking about like keeping on the follow-up, getting that connections down, going through that, that that huge like trial of just, always sending invitations left and right constantly. And like it does get to you. And it kind of, I feel like if those people who are trying to network, it kind of makes them fall back just because they don't have the ability to get that, communication back and forth. And like, the one thing about your forum that, I really do appreciate is like you have these MDs or like VPs come in very discreetly and pretty much telling them about the situation about here's an internship availability, jobs are like, either like up or down in their industry. So like when you get that type of interaction and then you go and you try to ping them, it's like, how many like MDs are from that position, like right in that area, and they just don't respond back. So it's kind of hard from a very like, from people like us who are students trying to, get into that, let's say investment banking, industry.
It's incredibly disheartening when you've sent out 300 messages and you have like 10 connect with you and then one respond to you. You get like 5. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the question. And so like when I see super, super big drop-offs like that, I question, what does your LinkedIn look like? I question, what is your outreach look like? Is it too long? Are you telling them a paragraph about 5 paragraphs about yourself, or is it like really short? If you're dialed in and you're getting that, try reaching out to just analysts, try reaching out to more boutiques. That's
what I've been starting to target now. Mostly is like analysts and associates, just because like they're able to really push you forward.
Yeah, and anybody who has any sort of connection at all to anything you do.
Exactly.
Outside of school.
Like I give you a perspective, like my LinkedIn sent is almost at that 500 mark.
Okay.
So once I reach that 500 mark, it'd be like a huge like happiness, low key. Very, very. And then I'm going to go all the way to the bottom.
So connections is about 500. So tell me this. Connection request is how much?
Can you guys see this?
Yeah, weekly. Yeah.
That's like everybody in the group has that, Patrick. Like what you're saying.
I have it too.
There you go.
My sales guy has had to slow down. It's a problem. They've started doing that more aggressively. And so it's made it harder.
I feel like they got a lot of bots that came in and they sent so many invitations out left and right that that's the reason why they put that.
But even the bots, they would block it if it was more than 100 a day. But usually they'd let it go for a while if you did it slowly. I think that's been harder, but there's ways to get emails outside of that. So hunter.io.
Yeah, Patrick, we've shared all that with the group. Everybody knows that.
I know all this.
Like, this is like, now when MDs like tell us about that, we're like, yep, we're doing that.
But like 100 a day, like you used to be able to do 100 invites a day. And not.
I don't remember what's the number. I can look it up, but
now I think it's like 20 or 30. And
no, it's definitely not 20. Like I do more than that a day.
But probably because you're more well connected, they let you.
Could be, or the opposite. I have so many connections. They're like, he's a spammer. Stop him. So yeah. But I know, like I think Shay called me the other day, and he was just like, I'm maxed out. Rajat, like I'm not able to connect with more people. Taha, I know on a daily basis, and like the first thing I told these guys, Patrick, I'm like, no paragraphs and one-liners. I told them exactly what they can say, and then I just don't do modeling with these guys, right? Like we also go through with everybody individually. I look at their contact sheets. I'm like, how many people have you contacted? And then I tell them the way, like connect with them on LinkedIn, get their emails from there, and then send them a direct email, and then put on like times out there for them to choose, and you get a response, right? But
do they use like a boomerang or a right inbox to remind themselves to make it easier on themselves?
I don't think so, but that's a good idea. I haven't shared that idea with these guys.
I use right inbox for all of my emails, and basically just put a reminder. It'll pop it up.
Spell it out, Patrick.
Just write RIGHT and then space inbox. It's just it allows you to put notes. It allows you to put notes in your Gmail notes or reminders, and if they don't reply, it just pops at the top of your inbox again.
Okay.
And so it's like, instead of having to create a whole, like you can still have the spreadsheet, but instead of having to be like, okay, who do I have to email today and filtering it by date, it'll just pop in your inbox, and the key is just don't read it until you're ready to act on it.
Yeah. The other good program that I was telling Rajat about, which I just downloaded recently, is Apollo.
Okay.
I don't know if you heard about it.
No, what is that? What's that?
So it's a interface.
Hunter.
Yeah, it's like Hunter is it's like a Chrome extension, but every time you go on LinkedIn, it will extract the email from like their work, and then then it will also save it on their platform as well. So And then, or you can just go on Apollo and just search, any employees from different types of banks or just overall like companies, and then you can save the contacts by that.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like the thought process, Raja, tell me if you disagree, but if you have like something unique in your background, like, I don't know, somebody's like into fencing or something really like just really niche, like it pays to just find that there's 5 other people that are in that niche sport or whatever. Let's say you're a squash player or like whatever, or pick it up. If you're not, pick up something weird. There's like
I love reading and running. That's a very unique thing. So I'm going to connect with the entire world because it's a unique feature. But no, I hear you.
Yeah, because like, if you have a genuine interest in it and you can talk about it, I think that helps make those connections.
But Patrick, people don't read like LinkedIn profiles, right? Like, and if you send a invite, if you're Taha is a master's in finance student without like really any investment banking experience, like an MD wouldn't really go and like read his profile, even if he had some unique, like, created a rocket or something for NASA.
Not the creator of the rocket. Like, I wouldn't reach out to the MD unless he also worked for NASA previously.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like relatability, and then say, hey, I saw you.
Hey, yeah, you also blah blah blah. How did you do? I'd love to chat for 2 minutes on how you were able to make the transition
and then get a job at the bank.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's easy to say. It's very hard to do and keep doing. And you guys are coming from a very great school, but for finance, it's not well known. There's no like well proven path or well trodden path here. So there's no alum like pulling you up either. So it makes it that much harder.
Don't forget about him. Roger was sitting there, I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm alum.
There's not a large group of
got an interview lined up, so no, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think, guys, it's like it's hard because it's easy for us to sit here and say, oh, just keep emailing. But if there's other, I think, Raja, it's for sure dead on. Get it out of LinkedIn as soon as you can. Get it to email, because there's the likelihood of that is so much higher. Make sure you're doing those follow-up sequences. So hit it once, then do 1 week later, then potentially like 3 weeks after that, and then maybe like 4 months after that or 3 months after that one more time. And if you can do that all automatically with the right inbox, you just drop it, and then that'll you'll be surprised if you follow up 4 times in email.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure you're going to get like a 30 or 40% response rate.
Patrick, I'll give you a funny response. So there was a managing director at Citibank.
Yeah.
I emailed him, I think, 5 or 6 times in a span of like a semester long period.
Yeah.
He finally emailed me back saying, congratulations for being very consistent. And then just left it like that. I was like, oh, I don't know what to do now.
Just ask him, like, does it pay off? Do I get a job now?
You should write back, do I get a job now? Is what you should write back.
I asked him, I was like, listen, because the thing is, prior to that, I did get to speak to him on the phone. And I followed exactly what he told me. He's like, listen, once you get a wealth management internship and you fulfill like your junior year in the undergrad, contact me again, and I'm going to start doing something with your resume and all that stuff. So I did. I didn't want to waste time because I was like, listen, like I'm at the end of my junior year, I'm trying to get an internship or something. So I followed up as much as I could. And then like after his email, I emailed him back in a good like 10 minutes, right? Like nothing like too dramatically long period.
Yeah.
And he never responded back to me.
Let's find him, Taha. I'll get him on. We'll be like, Taha has some some score to settle with you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, it's tough. That's tough.
But like here, Taha, I'd say this, like Doris, so Patrick, this is really interesting. Doris is not from the US. Her English is not, like American English fluent. Mm-hmm. And now she's working for a billionaire in Maryland in a venture capital firm. Right. And so Taha, like what I'm trying to say is that like Doris, and correct me if I'm wrong, like from what you told me, it's all like LinkedIn, emailing, and like really grinding and getting a job at that venture capital firm. Right. And so I don't know if the process is any different, but like, it does pay off. Like if somebody like Doris coming from another country, somebody like me coming from another country can do it, then you're sitting in New York, buddy. You're like,
if you're in New York, Matt, are you in New York at Columbia?
Yeah.
No, I'm actually in DC. I'm stuck in a lease down here.
Okay, but like if you're in New York, especially once it opens back up, like come on. I'm not going to have, I mean, I think I feel for you if you've already graduated and you're just figuring it out. But if you're in college in New York and like my other mentees, Grace, she's like a freshman and she knew she wanted to do banking. I'm like, this is done. Like you're in New York, it's automatic. Cause like I know she has enough time. And sure enough, she's like getting looks from like Blackstone. She already has a city internship lined up for the summer. I'm like, it was done because she knew early enough. And so that's the hard part is if you're late to the game. And she's at Fordham. She's not at like NYU or anything like that. So I think we could talk about networking for hours and hours and hours, the strategies, but it's about making that connection, right? So the other way to do it, which is hard nowadays with COVID, but other ways to meet people is like joining different clubs, finding golf buddies, squash, I don't know, anything, any other whiskey tasting clubs, places where, for lack of a better way, old white men, probably frequent, finance guys are going to be there, right? So if you can develop an interest in that or feign an interest in that just to get some sort of FaceTime with these people, they're like, what do you do? Or like, where are you? Oh, I'm actually a master's in finance student at Hopkins. Oh, really? Send me your resume. Boom, done. All of a sudden you're in an interview process. That's how the world works. And so
I think we've improvised a little bit with like the Zoom and Teams and stuff. Like all these guys, like I know I won't take names because I do private sessions with each one, but like people over here have already, in the process of getting interviews at like the speakers who've come in the past. So I think, with like COVID, it does become hard to like go and join like squash clubs and stuff. But, Patrick, these guys are now going to be reaching out to you. I'm like, Patrick, who do you know in the industry? Connect us with someone. And they'll follow up like 4 times. And they'll be like, Patrick, following up on your words. Sahan's going to be the first one.
Yeah, 4 times is minimum for me.
A threat.
I love it. No, yeah, I think for me, feel free to leverage, what I have. I'm happy to do like warm intros and stuff like that. That's not a problem. I've done it before. Yeah, that's basically, not that I know people in I have like the 30,000 connection limit. And I'm like, I don't know who I'm introducing you to most likely. But most people I will be willing to do like, oh, you should talk with Matt, or you should talk with Shay, you should talk with Doris, talk with them.
Guys, a way to leverage Patrick on a serious note would be not to ask for an MD introduction, but like a VP introduction. Because anything below VP is not that significant, but a vice president level is somebody who would be like, oh my God, that's Patrick. He's the CEO of Wall Street Oasis.
Yeah, associates love me, VPs, because they like, there's nostalgia around the brand too, for when they were like analysts suffering. So that helps.
So my question for you would be, Patrick, like, after going through like 152, like, podcasts, speaking to many MDs, VPs, and et cetera, like when you're able to speak to them, like, do they ever like mention that, this is like the perfect way to network with these particular groups among industries? Or is it just like the same, way of just getting as much as you can get out? Because I know that like, people who are willing to help and respond back is very hard to get from especially top positions. So like speaking to them and getting their,
there has been some people who haven't done the blast approach, who've been very deliberate in terms of how they like were super targeted and like did a lot of research, somehow knew a lot more about specific person or niche industry, for example. And so their messages, it took them a lot longer to send each one, but the hit rate was just incredibly high because they were able to be very specific in the message they sent to them. So it really kind of took.
And what was these people's background? Was it like more like no finance background?
I'm trying to remember. I think it was more like they had an internship, for example, in like FIG, and so they were like only going after FIG bankers and stuff like that, or stuff where you're showing a genuine interest specifically, and you have something to back it up on your resume, so that they feel like, oh, this person's not just bullshitting, like they want to be in FIG, like they actually do want to be in FIG. You know what I mean? So that helps because there's a lot. Think of how few kids are like, I want to go into that. Or if like, for example, let's say like you're going to a smaller market, a smaller regional market, you want to go live in Charlotte, or you want to go live in Denver, or you want to go live in, it can almost be easier, even though New York is like crazy a number of opportunities. The people in Denver and these smaller places probably aren't getting hit up as quite as much.
Yeah, funny thing is I hear like Minneapolis and like Minnesota. I spoke to like a private equity guy who works in Connecticut, and he told me that a couple of his friends who work in Minnesota, their market is actually very open right now because no one wants to go there. So,
no, but like that's huge. That's a huge arbitrage opportunity for you guys in your first job out of school. Like, who cares? Go live there for a year, freeze your ass off, 2 years, then you just have like your entire career has now been opened up. Your entire career.
I don't think they're very receptive to people from other cities now. Like I remember, like I
because they all know you're going to jump. They know you're going to jump.
A guy literally said that, and he was like, "You're not from here. I don't see you being here for the long term for those reasons." Like I can't. I'm like, bro, I'm from freaking India. You know, like I don't have a base camp here. Like, what are you talking about?
Texans are very, very particular on who they hire.
Who?
Texans. Yeah, like people from Texas. Yeah, I spoke to one person there, and he asked me specifically first questions like, "So, like, where do you live?" I gave him my uncle's address who lives in Houston. So he's like, "Oh, okay, not bad." Otherwise, he's like, I asked him, he's like, "Why is like location an issue?" He's like, "Yeah, we generally only hire Houston people." And I was like, it kind of makes sense because it's like New York as well, or like DC, where they're very biased on who they want to hire. And I think, and what really kind of gets frustrating is like, even when you apply and you say that, location, like, financial location, all that stuff, where you don't need to sponsor me or anything, it's still a no. It just will still reject you.
Yeah. Sorry, my.
Okay. I think you gave me a high five.
High five.
No, yeah, it is. It is. I get the sense that, yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. Like they can be specific, but it's for a reason, right? It's because people say, yeah, I love Texas. I want to come down there. And then they bounce 6 months into the job and they're like, shit, they're like, we're screwed again. Or people go to Minneapolis and they leave. So I think it's something where you have to, I mean, if they're looking for sometimes places are only looking for 2 years anyways, they don't want you to be there. And you're like, look, I can commit for 2 years there. And you're just honest about it. I think that could be one angle you take. The other angle is you could actually have a genuine reason to be, to be somewhere. Like my girlfriend's there and I need to get there or whatever. Just like have a real reason.
I have friends in every U.S. city for that reason alone.
Yeah. But like, the more specific you can get, the better, right? In terms of your story of why. Well,
for LA, we have a reason. We like Patrick's there. We know Patrick really well. So, we want to hang out with him, get a beer, to get us a job in the best banks in LA.
So like,
I want to see that office.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm actually NorCal, so don't say LA because then people will be like, he's in San Francisco, San Jose.
Okay.
For this stuff, I mean, I get the sense, Taha, in your case, that you're like just going super aggressive, which is great in terms of your reach. You might benefit from a little bit more like targeting or trying to get a little more niche in your interest and like matching interests and stuff like that.
Like, do you mean like by industry wise or just
No. Well, maybe, yeah, you could go that way, but like what's in your interest section on your resume?
Like horse riding, book reading,
you're talking about that. Oh yeah, it's like, private pilot, basketball, football, fitness.
Private pilot?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Are you actually a private pilot? Did I not know this?
I'm 10 hours shy of getting my...
Dude.
How do I not know this?
We don't even know who you are anymore.
What in the world?
But that's the kind of thing where it's easy to talk about. If you find anybody if you could somehow figure out like pilots who've made the transition, maybe military people who've made the transition from the Air Force to.
Yeah. So like my dad, like, he works for a defense company, BAE Systems.
Perfect.
So like so I'm trying to like leverage my internship from that perspective and try to get into like GE Capital, like, their
finance arm.
Or like, trying to find these ex-military people. And the thing is, like, these defense companies, they're very lovely to reach out to, because they always want to help out. And I always found out like ex-military people are hands down one of the best people that you could reach.
They're amazing.
Yeah, they're just amazing.
They're so giving. It's unbelievable. Yeah, I had an interview with one guy, and he was like one of the best guests. He was an associate at Goldman here, working his ass off. But he he just helps as many people as he can, and he's
Right.
working crazy hours. But yeah, I'd say just work on those angles, and no matter, like, you just want to have a job that's somewhat related, and as long as you like develop the habit of the right inbox and the networking and stuff like that, you're not stuck anywhere. It just makes it, that first job out of school, it just makes it harder. So you guys are all are they all master's students here?
Masters, but like masters in finance, and some are MBA.
Some are MBA. Okay. Yeah, so it's tough because
I guess 3 MBA and 3 masters, right, guys?
And the master's is 1 year, right?
So, well, I guess like if you look at Dora, she's done her master's and now she's working in a venture capital firm as an analyst. Matt and Taha are still in the master's program, and then Shay, Zach, and Kalal are like in their MBA programs.
Got it. And so when you guys came into the MBA program, did you guys know banking was what you wanted to do?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, well, that frankly, it was my first call was in June with our career development office, and the first thing was like, hey, if you're interested in banking, you probably should already be on it. My first call was with a guy from Goldman. He was like, oh yeah, by the way, our team's already filled out for the next summer, and I was like, oh my gosh, how am I this far behind already? So
yeah,
who'd you get connected with Goldman?
He was a guy. Yeah, he was a guy from Hopkins. He was an undergrad from Hopkins who is now at Goldman, and he was an engineer, so we connected over that. So, but
wait, so you're an engineer?
It was a good thing. I don't
know.
Yes.
So have you talked to like a ton of bankers or former engineers that are now bankers?
That's my play.
That's your angle. Yeah,
that's my angle. That and soccer players. I saw you play soccer actually. By the way, now that we're on, but
not well. Yeah, no, I was okay.
Fair. We can share that. And so those are my 2 niche categories, I suppose I go for.
That works. That's perfect. So it doesn't surprise me that you made it pretty far in that process. So what do you think stopped you from getting the offer? Just too much competition? It's just like not enough spots? Like just
they said 40 people in the final round. There were 3 openings, and they had and the crazy part was I actually found out, and I'm sure you know this better than I, the number of applicants they had on a per year basis was like an astronomical number. That was like almost, I didn't believe it when they told me it. But what I ended up finding was networked really well, or I felt really well connected with like 18 or 19 people within their industrial specifically.
Yeah.
And their MD was from Harvard, and they hired 3 Harvard Business School students. And I got my reviews back, and I was like, can you just give me honest feedback? Like, be as harsh as possible. And they were like, no, you were liked by the group. Your technicals were like good. You were, it was kind of, I mean,
so listen, Shay, but listen, one of those HPS people are going to leave within 6 months.
My cousin at Jeffrey said the same thing.
Or less, 3 months. They'll be gone. Like, I guarantee you, like, they don't, MBAs, especially out of Harvard, do not stick in one spot. And it's got to, guess what? The people with MBAs from HBS that are going into banking, they were probably consultants before, or they were in industry. They have no clue what's about to hit them.
Patrick, like these guys, their technicals are so rock solid. You can wake them up at like 3 a.m. and ask them to walk through like a heavy.
That sounds so fun.
I mean, you got to do what you got to do to get a job.
They're going to be, Shay, honestly, they're going to be gone. So like, if you can just like tread water and hang around and just keep being like, this is what I'm up to, get a job at a tiny boutique, whatever you have to do to pay the bills, just even if they're paying you $50K a year or whatever, who cares? Doesn't matter. Just get something that's somewhat related and just stay ideally somewhere close to them, like locally, if you can.
Yeah, he's doing he does a PE internship right now. So yeah, he's one thing. Hey Patrick, I think you might have missed one student.
Zach, what's your? Sorry about that. We got off on too many tangents.
Yeah, so just obviously everyone uses the forum feature of WSO, and then you talked a lot about the modeling courses. What's something that you think is like super underutilized that guys should use more, and then maybe leverage more?
I don't know if it's so underutilized, but the company database is pretty valuable for just getting salary and interview questions. I think it's probably underutilized because it's paid, or some of it. The toughest questions, so that makes sense. but it's like $19 a month or something, cheap. But basically, I think it's pretty well used. Like people typically do searches and find whatever topics they need, and then the courses themselves are getting more exposure. As you know, it's still relatively new for us. It's been like 7 months since we launched them. So I think that business is definitely growing as people become more aware, and word of mouth kind of spreads that the courses are a lot more fun. And there's actually an animated monkey in it who jumps around and makes it fun. And there's bananas flying everywhere and banana points. So when people
what was the inspiration?
Inspiration for what?
The monkeys. I love it so much.
Oh, have you read Monkey Business, the book? Or heard about it?
Maybe.
It's old.
I've heard about it, yeah.
It's old. It's like 20 something years old. So that book is like hilarious. It's like a legend in the banking world of like the whole reason it's called Monkey Business, because he was like, we're just a bunch of monkeys, like at 3 a.m., like formatting PowerPoint and running out to the cars and taking cars out to my MD's house in Connecticut and coming back. And it just kind of profiled early on the life of the investment banking analyst. I think it was like in the 90s or something, or early 2000s. So
is that how you got the monkey logo for Wall Street Oasis?
Yeah, that's why the whole theme of the site was monkeys. And
I check it out.
Yeah. Monkey, it's an old school book that it'll make you laugh. It's a super short read and really funny. So yeah.
Do they give you the hierarchy in that book, like the way you guys use the hierarchy?
Yeah, the baboon no, they don't do that.
Okay.
No, it's just like, it was a tongue-in-cheek thing, Monkey Business.
Gotcha.
And it's just like I think he's an analyst in it. Traub or something like that you can find it anywhere. Yeah.
So Patrick, building off of like Zach's question, like I'm curious to know, like when you're doing analytics on like your database of the users and stuff, what is something that surprises you? I'm like, oh, I never knew like people would be interested in this thing, and there's a lot of footprint in this thing on the website.
Yeah, good question. I mean, to be honest, our analytics aren't that advanced. We do some stuff in Tableau trying to see. I mean, we had crazy growth with COVID.
You'll get 2 stars in this group, Matt and Shay, and I can tell you why. We had a private equity senior associate come through, and he was like, oh yeah, and Matt is doing like data analytics at Columbia, and so he's like, Matt, I want to talk to you after this call. And he's like, Matt's like, yeah, I can get an internship there. But yeah, like these guys do a lot of
data analytics stuff. Well, the engineers, yeah. So yeah, no, for us, we pull in a lot of stuff to Tableau. We're not very good at like, a lot of it's just query data and trying to figure out, okay, what's going on with the users, what, number of active users, number of just actual sales and what's selling, why, when. I think some pretty interesting thing is, the machine learning Python course is pretty popular for a finance community. I think that's not going to change. We have a data analytics course that I'm trying to buy actually from another company.
Look at you.
So yeah, there's this guy.
Do you need bankers for that buy side acquisition, Patrick? We can do a 1%.
Yeah, guess how much? Yeah, you guys can do the deal on that. Guess what the total value is? It's like $5,000 for the whole course.
I'm putting that on a resume now. Like, yeah, all the interns looking for like
in millions. Not in millions. You can just put not really small.
Did a buy side transaction for a company with over 5 million users subscribed to their platform.
Yeah.
Amount non-disclosed.
Yeah, exactly.
Proprietary
pending deal.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so there's nothing that really, I'm trying to think, that really jumps out. I think one thing that's kind of underutilized is actually the industry reports. There's some really cool data on university data in terms of like what banks recruit from what schools. There's there's data on like which banks and which private equity funds recruit like military versus like varsity athletes versus not, like who has the most jockish bank versus who has like the least athletic bank. We have all that stuff and it's there. It's just people don't know where it is.
Zach, maybe that's of interest to you because you're in the military, right? Like, so I'm Marines, I guess. So maybe you should check it out.
Yeah, we have that. Like I can pull it up. It's and that stuff I think we offer that free. I think you can just see it. So if you go under reports and you drop down to like IB diversity stats, I think that has military in there. So it has male, female percentages. So it shows like which banks are more There's a lot of stuff here that we've cut.
Where is it on the website? If you go there,
reports, under reports, and you drop that down, and then just go to like IB diversity stats at the bottom.
Diversity, okay.
And just click on that.
Almost 40,000 submissions. Wow.
Yeah, and those numbers are out of date too. There's like a lot more. So here you'll see.
Oh yeah, I see that. Yeah, I've seen this.
So you see like racial diversity. You'll see female representation. So which firms are like more female friendly and actually hire and interview more women. We have data on like athletic representation. So you see like these companies, I don't even know who they are.
Yeah.
Stout, Reese's, Ross, Ray J, I guess is really jockish. MTS Health Partners, Oppenheimer, they like hiring athletes, I guess. Harris Williams. Military representation, so PwC has a huge thing. Kane Brothers, Nomura, UBS, JP Morgan, Credit Agricole.
Where do you have, I guess we don't have this right now, but this might be really interesting for you, Patrick. Companies that sponsor.
Yeah.
You should do that.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm betting you.
Great idea.
Yeah, the people who need sponsorship are probably digging the internet way harder than the people who don't. So that's going to drive a lot of footprint.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's something we should ask. I don't know if we might have that data.
I'm sure. Like EY sponsors, and I say that all the time. So, if there's something over here that I can click, yeah, EY sponsors.
Yeah.
Can go ahead.
Patrick, I got a question quick. Rajat was telling us something about a discount code, Rajat20, Rajat21, something like that. Now, I just wanted to know if in that diversity section, I can't pull it up right now, but in that diversity section, I would imagine that there's probably not a section for Middle Eastern people. And I know that in a lot of applications for all of these companies, Middle Eastern is not differentiated from white. So when I apply to places, I'm considered the majority, so straight white male. And I feel like that isn't really like the fad right now. And I would love to be able to include my diversity token, I guess. So, what are your thoughts on that? And what do you see the industry moving towards in terms of actually representing diversity rather than just trying to fill out certain quotas?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is PR. So they're going to just try and they're going to just try to fill their ranks with people just check the boxes. But I don't know. A lot of these things, have you tried applying to groups like SEO?
No.
Yeah. So SEO has if you say they may say get out of here. I think because they're going to look at underrepresented minorities, right? So they're not going to help. They're not going to help Rajat. They're not. They're probably not going to help you, but I don't know. So take a look at that.
SEO like Sarah, Charlie, Oscar.
SEO as in
SEO.
elephant. Yeah, SEO opportunities. It helps underrepresented minorities through getting jobs, and I think even from MBAs. But there's a ton of these programs. A lot of female-oriented programs. There's also Matt, for you. Why not? Is there any Middle Eastern groups, finance groups?
And at school, or what do you mean?
No, associations or something for hiring and stuff like that in New York. Or
I usually don't see anything. Most of the programs that they offer are either for military, females, or Black, and those are usually the three big ones that I see.
Latino, or Latino. Yep. So I think, Rajat, you looking up SEO? What is it?
I'm looking at what is SEO. How come I don't know about this? So
it's huge. We just put through, I think 200 of their kids who had investment banking full-time offers. We put 200 of their kids through private equity interview prep.
Wow,
because they were like, oh, we know these kids are going to get interviewed right away. They ended up not getting interviewed because of COVID. It got pushed, but they got them ready. So it's interesting because I don't know if it's a good question around, you are actually truly diversity in, you're not but I don't know. I don't know if if they're not considering you underrepresented, then that's the problem, right?
Yeah, I mean, just like when I took the GREs and everything, even standardized tests, everything that you go, there's very, very rarely a Middle Eastern box to check off.
Yeah, well, you can say other. I mean, you should just say other always.
Is that, I don't know what's legal or not, and there's always the little warning at the end of applications that say this is filled out to the best of my knowledge.
No, you don't have to say, if you don't associate with being white or Caucasian, just say you associate. Just say other.
Hey, if you want to be really happy, could just go file an application at McKinsey. They're very specific.
Oh, really?
You are, yeah. Yeah, they'd be like Asian. Okay, underneath Asian, like what are you, Pakistani? You gotta be like you gotta.
Oh, that's true. I've seen it in some things. Yeah, you're like Asian. What kind of Asian are you? Are you Indian Asian or you're like different Asian? Like, oh god, that's funny. Well, guys, we only have a minute left with Patrick, so I'm going to wrap this up. And so, Patrick, thank you again for like speaking to all of us. This has been really fun. I hope you enjoyed the sessions.
I had a blast.
Session.
It was fun.
Okay, great. Like, any quick feedback from your side to the students? What you like, what you thought could be different while interviewing people?
No, I think this is great. I think I feel for all of you in this really trying time. It's not an easy time because, some of the banks are really busy. That's the thing. What I would say is like a lot of the associates I talk to are just getting absolutely crushed. And a lot of them are going to be jumping ship after, if they're not leaving already, as soon as their bonus hits in about 2 or 3 months or in a month or whatever, there's going to be a lot of openings at the MBA associate level. So don't just make sure that you continue pushing on that networking, because all of a sudden where they're like, they're ignoring your call, it's going to be like, hey, Matt, hey, Zach, let's talk. And all of a sudden you're in a super day and boom, it happens as quick as that. And it only takes one. So that's what I would say is that the legwork you're putting in now to build out those contacts and have those conversations now are pretty crucial, especially Shay, like since you made it so far. You have the technical down, you have it. So it's just staying around the hoop and lasting long enough for eventually an opening to drop into your lap. But in the meantime, don't be snobby about like where you work.
Okay.
Get a job because you don't want to be like on the sidelines for too long. Because that looks bad too. Do what Rajat did. Just work for these crazy tiny boutiques and just get abused for several years. I mean, that's about as bad as it can get. What he went through.
I actually got one of the guys to like work for my old boss, and I like gave him like plenty of warning. And I actually went to West Palm Beach like 2 weeks back to like check on him. I stayed the weekend with him. I'm like, "Are you okay? Are you sure you're okay?" He's like, "Yeah, I know what I need to do." So I'm like, "Okay."
He's surviving. But yeah, that's the type of stuff. Like if you have to go work for somebody like that for a short stint, it's fine while you're continuing to stay around the hoop for a real job.
Right.
Cool. All right, guys. Patrick, thank you again.
All right, everybody. Thanks for taking the time. We'll talk soon.
All right, thank you.
All right, bye.
And thanks to you, my listeners at Wall Street Oasis. If you have any suggestions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to send them my way, Patrick@wallstreetoasis.com. Until next time.